It means if there's something wrong, those who have the ability to take action have the responsibility to take action. I'm gonna steal it.
What?
I'm gonna steal the Declaration of Independence.
Ben?
We interrupt this program to bring you...
Nick Whoa, Cage!
All right, everybody. My name is Kevin.
I'm John.
I'm Adam.
And I'm Julie.
And we are the Real Movie Guys, and welcome back to another episode of The Real Review, the series where we review and discuss all your favorite movies. It's March, ladies and gentlemen, so you know what that means. A real cage match. Real Cage Match is a special review series where your Real Movie Guys review 12 films from the legendary actor Nicolas Cage and have them go one-on-one in a tournament-style battle to determine which one truly is the cagiest of them all. On today's episode, we're going to be taking a look at National Treasure. A historian races to find the legendary Templar treasure before a team of mercenaries. Nick Cage was a busy man in the 2000s. It's very interesting because I felt like we got an interesting Nicolas Cage in the 2000s where I felt like he was kind of coasting, and National Treasure is that movie in a lot of regard. So the thing with National Treasure is, and I want to say this, National Treasure is a good movie. It's actually a really fun movie. I think it can be enjoyed by just about anybody, and you'll have a good time watching this. My only issue with this is, why is Nicolas Cage in this movie? Because he adds absolutely nothing. If anything, he's kind of just like a cardboard cutout of like a human being just put in this movie, because he really adds nothing. Like, the plot's interesting, everything that's around him is interesting, but this was by far, and out of everything we've watched, even compared to like his older films like Moonstruck, he's so tame in this movie, to the point where I was like, is that Nicolas Cage? Because I felt like he was like a stand-in body double or something like that. Because, again, while the movie's great, he just isn't really there for me. Let's go around and talk about it a little bit. Adam, how about you? What do you think after all these years watching National Treasure again?
This movie holds up for me. I love this movie. I have seen this movie so many times when I was younger, and I mean even now it's such an enjoyable to watch. But I do agree, especially in comparison to every other Nicolas Cage movie we've watched, it's definitely tame.
Yeah, because there's nothing of substance to his character really, and it's quite surprising. He's just Nicolas Cage.
Yeah.
The normal, I guess a normal, is that what he's playing? Maybe that's the gag here we're all missing. He's just playing a normal guy, Nicolas Cage.
He had to, check that box and, play a normal character. And he was like, all right, got it.
Yeah,
done.
Because again, everything that's going around him, like you said, and this is I think this is a really fun movie, especially from like a family perspective.
Absolutely.
If you're into like the Indiana Jones and, Uncharted, not the movie, we'll talk about the game, that's more interesting. If you're into those kind of things, like this is what that is, right? National Treasure is kind of like the embodiment of all that fun stuff. It's just a fun adventure film and not too violent. It's a family friendly adventure movie, and it's good. It's actually really good, but I kind of just wanted something from Nicolas Cage. I felt like it was just definitely lacking in that department for me. And I'm glad to see you noticed it too, Adam, because I think that's interesting. John, how about you? What'd you think? I know you like National Treasure.
To be honest, I think this is like the first time I've ever seen National Treasure.
I thought you've seen it before. I could have sworn we've talked about this before.
I swear that I thought I've seen it too before, and then after watching it, I was like, I've never seen this movie. And the other thing for me too is these adventure movies lately haven't been getting to me. Like, I seem to get bored through some of them.
Right.
And I don't know what it is, but this movie I thought was a little long for me. And at times I kind of was bored. But altogether throughout the movie, I thought it was interesting. Like, the whole plot was interesting. And the way they came up with certain things to find this, I thought that was interesting. But yeah, like you were saying too, like the Nicolas Cage character, it's just like almost like a random character off the street. It wasn't anything to write home about.
Right, it is. And it's interesting because this was a weird time for Disney where we had the hit with Pirates of the Caribbean, and this was kind of like the next big hit for them because that was 2003, I believe, and then National Treasure was 2004. So it kind of came out back to back on like a yearly basis. And Jerry Bruckheimer just called up his friend Nicolas Cage and said, hey, I got a favor for you. Will you be in this movie for me? I'll give you some Disney money. And that's kind of what it feels like. But he had a good movie. And much like I think Pirates of the Caribbean kind of shaped a lot of action movies, National Treasure kind of has those vibes to it too. It's just a really just thoroughly well-made, enjoyable movie. There are some issues with the plot, of course. But, if you're not looking too deeply into it, I don't think it's really a big deal. Julie, how about you? What'd you think? I know you've definitely seen this before, so.
I love National Treasure. Both movies are just so fun. I love the history along with like the mystery and adventure that goes along with it. I do agree. This is definitely like the least cagey we've seen him be. I wonder if the studio kind of kept him on a short leash and you're like, you gotta keep it cool, man. Gotta keep it cool.
Keep it cool, man.
Yeah, like Justin Bartha was more cagey than Nick Cage was in this movie.
Sean Bean was more cagey than Nicolas Cage.
I love
Sean Bean just like chewing the scenery here and there.
Great.
This bad guy with long hair routine.
The blonde wig. Yeah, he's great. This was it's such a fun movie. That classic, I'm going to steal the Declaration of Independence. Iconic.
Yeah, I mean, that's I'm sure they don't hear that all the time, right, Adam, when they make that joke about the stealing the Declaration of Independence?
Yeah, well, when I went to D.C. recently, a few years ago, I remember they specifically stated, no, it is not like the movie. You cannot steal the Declaration of the Independence.
That's pretty bad that they actually have to like make that reference. And I guess that says something about this movie too, that kind of stands within like the zeitgeist of our community where we talk about it.
Absolutely.
So
now, did you buy a replica?
$35
replica.
Oh yeah, no, I was able to swap them. Yeah, I got it.
Swap them. Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. At least it's bulletproof. When you're deflecting bullets from getting shot at the Declaration. How did that thing not fall apart throughout this whole movie? By the way, when they're carrying this like parchment that's super old and they're rolling it up pretty aggressively.
Yes, rolling it up throws me off because that's old paper. You would think like.
There's a lot of issues with this movie, so I guess we'll talk about some of those issues. The logic in this movie definitely isn't there a lot of the time. I know a lot of people have criticized this movie for their quick solving of nearly impossible situations. They really don't make sense when you really think about it. Nicolas Cage sits there for 2 minutes and literally figures out the whole puzzle that no one in the entire universe could have solved at any point. He just does it in like 2 seconds after thinking about it a little bit. There's that. Like you said, the Declaration doesn't really make sense with how old it is, and you're kind of like throwing it around, rolling it up, pouring lemon juice on it, and like hitting it with a hairdryer. I think that thing would have fallen apart. I mean, I'm no parchment expert, but I don't think it would have done pretty well. The funniest one I've seen is the stairs towards the end of the movie when they're climbing down those like really old stairs that have no business being even existing at this point. I mean, you put like a pinky toe on that thing was going to fall apart.
Well, even who makes a joke about it?
They do joke about it in the movie, yeah.
And he's like, 200 years worth of termite damage.
Yeah, I don't think, especially there's like a subway running like over it or something like that. I'm like, no, I'm sorry, there's no way. But
then people are crashing and falling onto it. You would instantly just be.
Yeah, everyone's dead. Everyone literally dies, and there's not really a big body. There's only one person dies in this movie. I thought more people died. I think one of the extra guys die. One of the bad guys, he like falls to his death.
Yeah, I was gonna say he dies in that scene, right?
Yeah, I think that's it.
Because it was like, no, sure.
But they never show his body or anything. It's a Disney movie, guys. We can't do that.
That's because it's gone.
It's gone. It fell into the void, even though they made it to the bottom of they made it to the bottom of the stairs, but there's no body there. He just disappeared. Disney made him disappear with their money. But again, if I can ignore that kind of stuff. That stuff doesn't normally bother me in a movie. You're driving the plot along, and as long as the plot's interesting, I think that is more important. And it is. And you know what? Again, everyone in this movie is pretty likable. I do like Riley as that side kind of snark alecky character. I think he does play a good contrast to what is a boring Nicolas Cage. Diane Kruger, I have a little bit of a bone to pick with her and her German accent that kind of like comes in and out as she pleases. She's another one, like just don't do an accent if you don't need to. John Voight seems like he could be Nicolas Cage's dad in real life. I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case. it kind of makes sense. And then of course Sean Bean, steals the movie for a lot of it for me with his flowing blonde locks and his action villain. I have unlimited resources, yet it's not obvious what I do, but I have unlimited money and I can travel the world within a snap of my fingers to go after you. I think it's fun. Again, if you like Indiana Jones and you like all those kind of movies, Pirates of the Caribbean, even Pirates of the Caribbean, it's kind of in that same vein of that kind of movie. It's just a fun adventure movie. And to be honest with you guys, we don't get many movies like this today. Just simple, fun action flicks. It's not super high artsy. It's not asking you to think outside of the box. Do you think that's part of its charm, Adam? It's just telling you to have a good time and enjoy it. And I think that's what this is.
Yeah, I think the quality of this film is something that you don't get like nowadays. At least, all things considered, I think that the quality is definitely there with this movie.
Yeah, because I think everyone likes a good, kind of action adventure like this, and that's why I think part of the charm of this movie too is its history, especially for maybe more for Americans and whatnot. We relate to that history. It's stuff we've learned about in school through the history books and all these fun things. Sometimes we like the things where they play into, parts about the history, but you didn't know this secrets part, there's something on the back of the Declaration of Independence. Yeah, it's so stupid, but it's so fun. It's such a fun concept. And I can't stress to you, again, we need more movies like this. And it's interesting we say that because National Treasure did come back as a TV show. Did anybody check that out whatsoever? Because I don't think I heard good things about it. I think it was
I didn't check it out because I heard it was bad.
Yeah, it might be one of those things.
Nick Cage.
No Nick Cage.
Right.
I don't know, but again, maybe that's part of it too because I don't know if he would have added that much, to be honest. But again, it's one of those things. I think it's a fun movie. It's hard to find things to really talk about because it kind of does what it's supposed to do. It goes out and sets out to be just a fun action movie, and that's really what you get. John, since this is your first time watching it, that's news to me at this point. I did not know that. Did you have any kind of expectations for this movie when you watched it? Was there something, because I know you've heard about National Treasure, obviously.
Yeah, no, I've always heard good things about the whole entire franchise of the movies. And I've always heard that it was a great movie, but I don't know. I've never seen it. I feel like it was one of those movies that I thought I've watched. How you always have a movie where you thought you saw the movie, then you go back and you watch that movie and you go, no, I've never seen this. Or I've even just starting throughout the whole movie, I was like, I swear, I feel like there's times where I've seen parts of this movie.
And I wonder if that's part of the magic of National Treasure, where it feels like a movie you've seen before, and that's why it's so relatable. Because I think it's a well executed movie. Cinematography, acting is fine. Julie, how about you? Anything else you can really add for it? It's one of those movies. Again, I feel like it's hard to add stuff to talk about with this.
It's just a fun movie. It's really enjoyable. It's kind of it's that weird where you can turn off your brain and shut off. But then it's also I like the historical elements to it. I think that's interesting, whether or not, completely accurate or whatever, it makes sense. It's just fun. The score was also really cool. Very Pirates of the Caribbean-esque, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, no, the score is actually really good soundtrack for this movie too, just in general. But again, I guess the hardest part for someone, and again, this won't affect anyone unless you were really looking for it. Nicolas Cage just doesn't really exist in this movie. And I think what this movie could have been amazing, right? I think there's kind of a scale here. And I don't know if you guys agree with this either. It's this movie as it stands is fine, right? It's a good movie. I think we all agree that, right? I think we can all say that it's a good movie, but it's not a great movie by any means. I think if you had a more interesting actor with a more eccentric or more interesting performance. The way I think of it is like this: you have Indiana Jones, you have Harrison Ford, this cool, suave guy. He makes the story of that Indiana Jones movie much more interesting and much more exciting because we look forward to Indiana Jones on that adventure. I don't necessarily look at Benjamin Franklin Gates selling me on the adventures of National Treasure. The story of National Treasure is good, but there's no excitement behind Benjamin Gates's next big adventure. Even when we get to the second movie, which I think the second movie is a little more fun than this movie in some regard. We're not going to really talk too much about it. It's definitely cagier, and I think that was for the better, where they gave Nick Cage a little bit more of a standout performance. I think he needed something like this. Even Mission Impossible, you have Tom Cruise in those movies. He's a standout. He's kind of eccentric. He's this cool, suave action guy. And I know they're not going for that with this movie. Because again, Benjamin Gates, I guess his appeal is supposed to be he's like the everyday man, but he's also not, because he's super brilliant, can solve anything within 2 seconds. Adam, do you think this movie would have been better with a more charismatic lead that was more exciting and interesting? Do you think it could have taken this one step level higher?
I think so. I think, creating a name for, Benjamin Franklin Gates would have been that much better. I think, giving him a little bit more of a personality would probably be more beneficial, I think.
Yeah, and changing his name too, right? We all agree.
Yeah,
we all
that
agree with
probably.
I know, John, you like the Benjamin Franklin Gates thing, right?
Oh, yeah, it's amazing.
I almost felt like
So
spit
creative.
take in the beginning when the grandfather's like, Benjamin Franklin Gates. Like, get out of town. I forget about it, I guess, every time I see the movie that his name's Benjamin Franklin Gates.
Spit my coffee all over myself because I
Literally. And
yeah.
I think, yeah.
Literal history buff right there. I mean, if we could need a little more. They're obsessed with history in that family, let me tell you.
Yes. And then even just the charm when you're making that Indiana Jones comparison, like Harrison Ford is Indy, he's a stud, man. And then you just have
But even and that's like any action movie, I think, in general. If we talk about like Pirates of the Caribbean, Captain Jack Sparrow is like, you're ready for Captain. I mean, that movie kind of, if you think about it in comparison to, at least in that way, like he wasn't even really the main character, but he kind of became the main character because of how energetic and how crazy his performance was. I think we needed something like this in the National Treasure series, because I think, from being like an okay movie, it could have been an exceptional movie. Do you think so too, John? Do you think maybe a little bit better of a lead performance would have made the story more interesting and engaging?
Oh, yeah, 100%. I feel like that's the one thing that a lot of those adventure movies have. They have that one strong character lead that you want to go back and watch what he's going through. And this one was kind of like more just like, hey, we have an average guy per se, not like an extraordinary thing or person to lead us through this adventure.
Yeah, and it's tough because I wanted to go do like the real Cagiest moment for this movie, and we kind of discussed this before we even jumped on for this review. There isn't one. There really isn't. I think the only thing that was kind of just weird was when Nicolas Cage rescues Diane Kruger, and they're in the middle of a truck, and he goes like, "Are you okay? Are you okay? Do you want some? Are you hungry?
You all right?
No, those lunatics.
You're not hurt, are you?
You're all lunatics.
You hungry?
What?
Are you all right?
Why did he say that? Like, that's the only. Is that the only line they let Nicolas Cage like slide in there just to show that he's a little eccentric? Because again, the rest of this movie, and trust me, I literally like laser focused, tried to pay attention. There's just no character within him. I felt kind of like a cash grab for him almost, where he's just like, I'm phoning it in. Again, the movie's good, and he's lucky that he's able to coast along on how good the movie is. But his performance was just nothing to write home about. There was nothing else I found interesting about him, and that kind of stinks in hindsight.
Yeah, I wish we had. I mean, I guess my childhood experience with
Right.
the movie, it's like different than what I saw today, but. Because at the time, Benjamin Gates was like, I was like, wow, he's look at this guy, he's so cool. But now I'm like, nah.
Yeah, nah, and especially I don't know if it's because you get more knowledge of an actor, where it's like, oh, they're we've seen them in other things and they're more interesting. I wonder if that plays a part into it too, where we're expecting something else.
Yeah, probably. It
wouldn't hurt, but I think we're at that point that we're ready to give our final scores. I'm gonna give National Treasure a 7 out of 10.
Are you trying to steal that?
Oh,
It's $35.
for this?
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Hey, I don't make the prices.
So, I have 32. 57.
We take Visa.
It's a good movie. It really is. It's one of those movies. I think it's just a good movie. From beginning to end, I think there's a lot of enjoyment with it. I think a lot of people are going to have a good time. There's a reason, a lot of like history classes still show this movie through middle school and even high school. You still see it anytime they talk about the Declaration of Independence. Like, oh, let's watch National Treasure. They go and steal it. It's just a fun movie. If you want to get your children into like an action movie, I think this is like a safe one. There's really no super violence. Yeah, there's some gun fleeing, but no one really gets shot or anything like that. One guy just dies Disney style off screen and falls in a big hole. But other than that, there's nothing really bad in these movies. I think they're a good time. They're interesting because of their history material. It's just middle of the road. It's just a good movie for me because, again, I wanted it to be great. And I think if you had Nicolas Cage at least try with maybe a little more crazy or eccentric performance, or you had maybe just a whole nother actor in this role, I think it could have been something even more special. But for me, I think it's just a good movie. But again, National Treasure is a good time. Adam, let's start with you. Where do you stand with this one?
I am going to give National Treasure an 8 out of 10.
Anyone that can do anything is going to think we're crazy. But anyone crazy enough to believe us isn't going to want to help.
We don't need someone crazy, but one step short of crazy. What do you get?
Obsessed.
Passionate.
I love this movie. I will happily rewatch it again. In terms of Nicolas Cage's performance, definitely lacking. But I just think that the story is too good to give it a lower score.
All right, I can understand with you with there. I think, and I would be wrong if I said I wouldn't rewatch this movie because I have several times at this point. I've seen it quite a few times. I think it is a fun movie. It's just, I don't know. It could just be me. I wanted something a little bit more from Nicolas Cage. But again, I think 8's a fair score too. I could definitely see that being something. John, first time viewer over there. What do you think with this one?
I give this movie a 7.
I missed it.
No, we didn't. We didn't miss it because... You don't know this? I know something about history that you don't know.
I'd be very excited to learn about it, Riley.
Oh, hold on one second. I'm just taking this moment. This is cool. Is this how you feel all the time? Because, except for now, of course.
Riley!
All right.
I feel like, yeah, it was an average good movie. It wasn't extraordinary, but I had a fun time through it. But yeah, like you were saying too, I feel like a strong main character in this movie would have done this a lot better justice.
Yeah, no, and that's interesting. I think your opinion's the most diverse, I think, out of all of us, because this is your first time technically seeing the movie. So it's kind of, you don't have the rose-colored glasses like we would maybe going into this one. But I think both scores are right, though. I think Adams is right with the 8, and I think yours is right with the 7. I definitely see credence to both of those, because, again, this is a good movie, and no one's really wrong in their opinion. It's just, it could have been so much more. It's right there. It's right there for me. Julie, we're going to wrap up with you. What do you think?
I am going to give National Treasure an 8 out of 10 as well.
Wow.
Look at the elevators.
Dumbwaiter system. How do a bunch of guys with hand tools build all this?
Same way they built the pyramids. The Great Wall of China.
Yeah. The aliens helped them.
It is such a fun movie. Guess could have even been better with maybe more Caginess or maybe a different actor. Who's to say? But I love this movie. This has so much rewatchability. I would love to see it continue, maybe not as a TV show, but I would like to see Benjamin Franklin Gates and the crew get together again and, solve another historical mystery.
Yeah, I always wonder what happened with that. I know for years they were talking with Nicolas Cage, and he always said he wanted to go back and he would do the character and do another movie, but it just kind of never happened that way. I don't know if Disney just changed their plans or whatever the case is, and maybe he didn't want to do a Disney Plus TV show. I could definitely see that being the case. It's weird, like the Santa Claus can get like a TV show of like 6 episodes with, Tim Allen, but we couldn't get Nicolas Cage for a couple episodes of National Treasure, because this this movie's ready for like a TV style show of like 6 episodes, like a longer story, especially like a mystery story like this can always lend itself to something interesting. But what do you guys think? Who do you think is right in the comments below? Let us know. Is that me and John with the swimming in 7s over here, or Adam and Julie kind of like diving with the 8s? I'm curious to see what you guys think, because I could see this being a diverse. I don't think anyone's going to say this is a bad movie for sure. I don't see that being the opinion. But what do you think? Who would you have cast as Nicolas Cage's role if you could go back in time and that sweet year of the 2000s there and pick someone to play Benjamin Franklin Gates? Who would you guys have cast? Let us know in the comments below. But anyway, thank you guys so much for joining us for this episode of The Real Review. We'll catch you in the next bracket battle, which should be very interesting for a real Cage match. Ghost Riders taking on Nicolas Cage. I can't wait to see what comes out of that one. We'll catch you guys next time. If you guys like what you've seen here today, consider giving this video a like and leaving your thoughts in the comments below. If you want to stay up to date with everything Real Movie Guys related, make sure to hit that subscribe button and check us out on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And don't forget, all you audio listeners at home, we are available on many podcasting platforms. Just search The Real Movie Guys, you should pop right up. Thank you again all so much for joining us on this episode of The Real Review. We are The Real Movie Guys. Real guys, real movies, real thoughts. Catch you next time.